Hey guys, Jehuty here with another Tekken 7 video, and today I'm adding a new chapter in the Tekken 101 series, and that is sidestepping and sidewalking. And the reason for this video is a lot of people, especially those who are new to the game, want to sidestep or sidewalk but still get clipped whilst they're doing it, so in the end they actually don't want to do it, and then the game becomes a 2D game, and that's kind of a shame because Tekken is a 3D game, and if you utilize movement properly it can work to your advantage. So to do a basic sidestep, you can tap either down or up. What I mean by that is you tap the button, so you press it once really quickly and let it go. You can tap down to move into the foreground and tap up to move into the background. Of course, when you switch sides it's the same thing. So you still press down to, or better said tap down to move into the foreground, and then you tap up to move into the background. So now let's talk about sidewalking. This is where you continuously walk and you tap down once and then you press it again, but you hold it this time to continuously walking into the foreground, and then you tap up once and then you press it again and hold it to move into the background. And then once again it's the same thing when you switch sides. Tap down and then press it again and hold it to move into the foreground. Tap up and press it again and hold it, of course, to walk into the background. Now that we've covered the basics, what you need to figure out now for yourself is what direction to step what character. So for this you need to Google, and then you just type in Tekken sidestep characters, and this is the example I use from the Steam community. However, there are other guides out there. So what's important is that you keep this list close to you whenever you play Tekken, so that you look up whenever you're facing somebody what direction to sidestep, sidewalk them. Now there's some general rules to this, like for instance, generally when it comes to the Mishimas you want to sidestep them left or sidewalk them left. The Williams sisters on the other hand, Anna and Nina, you want to move to the right, so sidestep, sidewalk to the right. And then of course King and Armor King the same, also to the right. Now these are mostly denoted as SSL, so sidestep left, and SSR, so sidestep right. However, in most guides when people reference this, they're not only talking about the step, they're also talking about the sidewalk. So keep that in mind. When you're looking at the direction of stepping, you look at it in reference to your character. So from your character's perspective. If it says sidestep left in the guide, what that means is from the left side of your character. So if you're on player 1 side, that means that you're sidestepping or sidewalking into the background. If, of course, you are sidestepping to the right on player 1 side, you're stepping into the foreground. So, of course, vice versa on player 2 side, if they tell you to sidestep left from your character's point of view, you are stepping into the foreground. And if they tell you sidestep right, then you're stepping into the background. So now I finally get to talk about utilizing sidestepping and sidewalking properly in a match, or better said, the reasons why you're getting hit whilst trying to do this. So it's no lie that sidestepping and sidewalking can get you out of a couple of tricky situations, some which I'm showing you in the background, but it's also no lie, and that's the first reason, that the movement system in Tekken 7 has been nerfed heavily in comparison to let's say Tekken Tag Tournament 1 or Tekken 3. In those older games, people had a very big sidestep arc and they did their sidestep relatively quickly. And then Tekken 4 introduced sidewalking, followed by Tekken 5 toning both down a bit. However, it was still very usable. Then Tekken 7 really nerfed both of them heavily. And yeah, if you're coming from an older Tekken entry, this may not be obvious to you in the very beginning, and this is one of the reasons you're getting hit. Another reason why you're getting hit is that there is a big difference between the sidestep and the sidewalk. So what you may not know is that when you actually are trying to step your opponent and you're doing everything right, you're stepping to your weak side and the attack isn't a homing attack, you're still getting hit, and the reason for that is you're either trying to sidestep too early or too late. You see, when you utilize a sidestep, you have to utilize it in the moment when the attack comes out for it to work properly. If it's not done that way, your opponent realigns with you. So what you're actually doing when you're sidestepping multiple times into the background or into the foreground is you're allowing your opponent to realign with you. And this is what results in you eating the attack, which is actually a linear attack. So that's why I recommend that if you're a beginner, in the beginner ranks, you actually try to sidewalk instead of sidestep, because I get it, you know, sidestepping is the easier input by just tapping up or tapping down, whereas sometimes we get misinputs with sidewalking. So lab it a bit in practice mode and get used to the inputs. Now with sidewalking, you start off with a sidestep and then you transition into a slower walk. However, the difference here is that your opponent no longer realigns with you. The only issue you have is that if the opponent has a bit of tracking in that direction which you're trying to sidewalk into, the attack will still hit you. That's when the difference comes in, that if you predict that attack coming and you time a well-timed sidestep, you will evade the attack. One of the reasons why you're getting hit while attempting to sidestep in particular goes hand in hand with the next reason, and that is you are actually cutting your sidestep short. So you see your opponent's attack happen, you've sidestepped, and now because you think your opponent is done with their attack and you've already sidestepped it, you activate your attack. So you're actually cutting the sidestep short. So what I recommend you do is that you actually wait to see the tail end recovery of the step. So you don't have to watch the step till to the end, but you should see the recovery animation of the sidestep before you try to activate your attack. So the next reason for getting hit whilst trying to sidestep or sidewalk goes hand in hand with what I just mentioned, and that is hitboxes. So you see, Tekken is a 3D fighter and it utilizes hitboxes. What that means is that if a character throws out an attack, their hitbox expands, so they become bigger. If I explain this with balloons, you can imagine that a balloon doesn't have air inside, or maybe just has a bit of air inside, so it covers a bit of space. However, when it throws out an attack, it becomes bigger. Now if you sidestep this and you also throw out an attack, your hitbox also becomes bigger. However, their attack came out earlier and their attack is still active, so when both of you connect, you get hit. It doesn't sound fair on paper. However, to avoid this, what you need to do is you actually have to throw out your attack when you visually register that their animation is now recovering. Every attack has an animation where it starts off, then an animation where it's active, and then an animation, of course, where it recovers and puts the character back in his ideal position. So with that in mind, you just have to look and register when the attack is over, and then whilst it's recovering, that is when you throw out your attack. It sounds simpler than it actually is, and that's because in many cases we lack practice. So go into practice mode, try this a couple of times with attacks you're suffering with. Best example here is Brian's back 1. A lot of people step this successfully, but then they still get hit because they throw out their attack too early. So as I'm wrapping up this video, let me just put out some general tips over there to nudge you guys in the right direction. So in Tekken 7 you have these moves that track to both sides, and they're mostly marked by the white sparks that they have, so use that as a visual reference. The other thing is that a lot of airborne attacks are very linear, so things like Brian's orbital or like hop kicks in general, you can step them quite well to both sides. So just keep those little things in mind. So this brings me to the end of this Tekken 101 series video. I hope it was really helpful, and I'd also really appreciate some feedback on them. If you liked it, leave a like, consider sharing and subscribing because that helps me the most. And this is your boy Jehuty, and I'll see you on the next one.